Five with Phil is brought to you by Coors Light, Mountain Cold. For another edition of Taking Five with Phil, joined once again by Irish Illustrated's Tim Priester. How we doing, Tim? Good to see
Doing
you.
well. Thanks, Jesse. How are you?
I'm doing well. I hear we have a newly unemployed guy on this broadcast right now.
Yeah, we'll let him get a little side work in here.
Uh, okay, the news is that the day job went away as of today. So it's 100% full-time Fighting Irish preview from here on out. So
Well, congratulations, Phil.
voluntarily it's out. It
I don't know if I should be
voluntarily.
terrified though that you have all this extra time now to analyze what I'm doing. So,
Right. Well, no, I that's a full-time job in itself. So
all right, guys. Well, we're going to jump into it. We got a lot going on. There's even new news as we're recording this about Notre Dame's schedule. But we're going to jump into our first question of the Taking Five. So, seems like every year since Freeman's been a head coach, there's been a big turnover in the assistant coaching or like the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator rooms. Well, this is going to be kind of the first year where we're not experiencing that. So there's going to be no excuse for either side of the ball to really be falling short. Tim, what are the biggest areas of concern on either side of the ball heading into the season?
Well, let me start on the defensive side because, yeah, Chris Ash is back, the defensive coordinator. He is surrounded by three new assistant coaches, but it's always better that way. It's better than having to replace your coordinator and have position coaches already in place. That was the situation last year when Chris Ash came in. So that's one thing. But Chris Ash, second year, no doubt, they should hit the ground running. They're deep on all levels, and they should be really good. I would say depth at defensive end as we look at it right now. We're not certain about what Keon Keeley is going to bring to the equation. We know the starters in Traore and Bryce Young, and we think that Rodney Dunham is an immediate contributor, but not a lot of depth there. And then a question about the nickel position, which has been good. Notre Dame has been bringing in transfers, and they've generally gotten good play out of those guys. Now they're going to move Christian Gray to nickel, share that spot with Dallas Golden, and then in so doing, DJ McKinney, the transfer from Colorado, will start in the spot that Christian Gray was before. So a little bit of concern there. Continuity on the offensive line, consistency with the wide receiver core. But let's face it, these are first world problems that Notre Dame has, and it's their problems are a lot better than most other teams.
well, I'll hit the defense, and then we're going to go on to offense. And I only have really, I certainly would back up what Tim just said, but I don't have much concerns, but I'm a little concerned about how fast KVA can get back into the lineup. I know we've had some good reports. That's again another first world problem. We've got options beyond him, but if he can get back in, that guy is definitely a huge difference maker.
Yeah, if your starters are Bowen and Osbury or Bowen and Sneed, you're doing pretty well. But all reports are very, very positive with Kingston Viliamu-Asa. He's definitely ahead of schedule. Now, does that mean that he's ready to go 100% for the opening game? We'll have a little better idea as we get in later to the week and have an opportunity to see a full practice and a couple segments of two others. I think he's going to be okay, Phil. I really do. I mean, I think, again, if it's not right at the start of the season, I think he's going to be really close. He has been cleared to do what everybody else is doing. Contact is right around the corner, and we'll see what they do there.
So how about that offense, Tim? What's the biggest concern on the offense?
Again, the consistency with the wide receiver core. We're optimistic about a lot of guys. You're optimistic about Mylan Graham, the transfer from Ohio State. Well, we've really only seen him in a couple practices. I think Jordan Faison will continue to emerge as the front runner there at wide receiver. He led the team in receptions last year. A real key is Jaden Greathouse. They need him to be back 100% and producing. He produced at the beginning of his freshman year, at the end of his sophomore year, big time against big time opponents, and then was injury riddled last year. So, those are the guys. Devin Fitzgerald, a freshman, could he get in the running? He absolutely could. It's going to be very competitive at the boundary receiver position. Quincy Porter's not 100% yet. He's competing for that. Micah Gilbert didn't have a great spring. So we're nitpicking a little bit, but we're in a position to nitpick because Notre Dame is a veteran team with depth. And when you go look at it a little bit deeper, there may be a flaw here or there.
Yeah, well, they're a veteran team with a lot of depth, but they're a veteran team without a lot of depth, at least veteran depth at one position, and that's my biggest concern. And I think that's kind of the leader in the clubhouse here. And it's talk about a first world problem. We're worried about the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
And how do you see that going?
Boy, I'm a big believer in Teddy Gerard. Having said that, I've never seen him throw a single pass wearing a Notre Dame uniform. So
Right.
until we see some of that, the other stuff is just kind of speculation. I thought Noah Grubbs, they have a redshirt freshman, and that's Blake Hebert. They have a freshman, Noah Grubbs, and Teddy Gerard is really a senior in high school that reclassified as a freshman. So they're incredibly young there. There's no doubt. But I started to say Noah Grubbs impressed in the spring. I mean, I thought his velocity was very good. His decision making was decisive, if not always the right one or accurately thrown. But I think it's a good competition. I really think the upside is the highest with Gerard and Grubbs. Does that give them an edge winning the backup job, or Hebert's been in the program for a little while longer? Is he going to have things, the fundamentals of the position straightened out? Because look, last year at this time, we were talking about the battle between Kenny Mitchie and CJ Carr. There is no battle for number one, but there's a similar battle for the number 2 spot. And you have to when you name a starter who we know is CJ Carr, you've got to have a backup named for the first game as well.
Jesse, I think we both just confirmed that we don't see huge weaknesses on this team.
Well,
But
I do want to just touch on the Christian Gray situation. I think this might be one of our better nickel years that we see. That guy's seen a lot of snaps. He's been put in a lot of hard spots. He's always kind of come back when we've seen him make mistakes. I think if he's put there, we're going to see big things out of him this year.
Yeah, he's a resilient dude. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he's been up against it. When you're playing opposite of Benjamin Morrison and Leonard Moore, they aren't throwing to the side of those two guys, and so you're up against. I do feel like at times Notre Dame fans are a little unfair to Christian Gray. I mean, you expect your Notre Dame receivers to beat DBs deep. Well, sometimes Notre Dame's get beat too. That's just the nature of the game. They're throwing the ball over the yard now. Receivers are going to make plays. He's given up a few big plays. He's been called for a lot of interference calls, but a 15-yard penalty is better than a 65-yard completion. So I generally don't have a lot of complaints about an interference, especially if it's something that's going to prevent an explosive play.
I'd argue he made 2 of the biggest plays in the national title championship.
No doubt about it. No doubt.
We're going to go ahead and jump on to number 2 in a year where the motto is leave no doubt. We're Notre Dame fans at heart. We're scarred by early season, either disappointments or the Boston College field goals, things of this. We're scarred people. The schedule does line up favorably to leave no doubt. Besides the big names like Miami, BYU, or SMU, is there anybody capable of creating doubt on any given Saturday?
You know who created doubt last year? Boston College in Boston. So absolutely, this is the game of college football. It's the game of football. And on a given Saturday, as good as we think Notre Dame is, that doesn't mean that they are going to dominate every quarter. So the first thing I do is look at games on the road. Well, first of all, I think the best team after those 3 that you mentioned, Jesse, is Wisconsin. I realize they were 4-8 last year. They had injuries at the quarterback position. They brought in Colton Joseph from Old Dominion, who had a couple of 70-plus yard runs against Indiana. He also had 3 interceptions in that game as well. But he's a guy that can spark an offense. And Wisconsin's greatest strength is on the defensive side of the ball. I love their 2 linebackers. they've done a really nice job of stopping the run. A 4-8 team that only gave up 3.4 yards per carry last year. That's pretty impressive. So I would mention them first. I would mention North Carolina on the road. I realize that it's a bit of a dumpster fire going on there right now, but their defense did some really good things last year too. They were 23rd in the country in yards per carry against their defense. They were actually first in the country in fewest 30-yard plays, 30-yard plus plays allowed. So they're not a defense that gives up a lot of big plays. And really kind of going back to concerns about Notre Dame, maybe big playability, considering how easily those came about with the two running backs that you had, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. Maybe you're not quite as explosive, although CJ Carr's certainly going to, as much as he pushed the ball down the field last year, I think we're going to see even more of that. But I'm veering off a little bit. I think Wisconsin, I think UNC on the road. Always concerned about playing Boston College because it's a rivalry and it seems to matter more to them. Or they're psyched up for the game, and Notre Dame, it's just another game many times. And then of course, if Notre Dame's 11-0 at the end of the regular season, having to travel to Syracuse, if Steve Angeli is still healthy and throwing the ball around for Syracuse, you'd hate for the season to be spoiled at that time.
Yeah, I'm going to focus on this question on Wisconsin, who I mean, points wise, when you look at the early point spreads, they're the closest beyond SMU, Miami, and BYU. But there's Notre Dame's still a 20-point favorite in that game. But early season game, we know that that's been difficult. We saw that last year, of course, 2 years ago, second game. Luke Fickell's gonna, it's his old running mate, Marcus Freeman. Luke Fickell's on a bit of a short leave. His back is against the wall. There's a lot riding on it. And I know I've read things that said this is going to be a pro Notre Dame crowd. Well, it's 50-50. It's in the state of Wisconsin. I think it might be a little tougher crowd than you think. So, and you never know how that you're going to start off in the first game. So that's probably my biggest concern.
Well, let's go ahead and take a peek at the schedule and jump into a time machine here, Tim. Besides a 4-0 start, what, if anything, could this Notre Dame squad do in September that would have you convinced we are a national championship favorite?
Well, without a running quarterback, without a quarterback like Riley Leonard, will CJ Carr run or sneak it, be a little bit stronger and be able to do some of those things? Maybe. But I mean that's not his game. So I mean without a running quarterback, I think it's really important that Notre Dame is able to run the football when they want to run the football, and that generally is in short yardage situations. And again, you had running backs. Yeah, and Jeremiah Love broke so many tackles. You don't think of him as necessarily a big, strong running back, but he played that way many times in short yardage situations. So for me, if they can show against Wisconsin, which is again a formidable defensive front that allowed less than 3.5 yards per carry last year, if they can have some success on third down running the football, moving the chains, and just get some of those tough yards on the ground, I'd say, okay, well, that's a good start to the running game, because there are some chemistry issues that need to be developed. Two of your returning starters, Anthony Knapp and Gerby Lambert, are playing different positions. We don't know exactly who will be at center. Will it be Joe Otting? Will it be Ashton Craig? Will he be ready to go? Will Black will be making his first start. And then you have Sullivan Absher at right guard, who's probably going to have to compete with Matty Augustine to win a starting job in the preseason. So a little bit of chemistry. I don't want to say issues or concern, but you want to see that develop early in the season.
It takes time. And for my pick here, I want to go to the other side of the ball, though, and talk about what I want to see out of that defense. Now, we no reason to believe that this is going to be anything other than a really, really top-notch defense. But it could actually go to a different level, I think, and it's not something that Notre Dame has had for a while anyway, and that is a pass rush out of the front four, just purely without dialing up blitzes or anything like that. If you can get that, and they brought guys in who I think can do it, I think we can get a pass rush out of that front four. And if we go into the 1st of October and that is a dominant front four rushing the passer. Yeah, it's going to threaten Notre Dame records, I think, for the ability to limit
Well,
points and everything else.
the last time in 2012, when Notre Dame played for the national title against Alabama, I believe it was 12.8 points per game that they gave up. That that's a fairly realistic goal, I think, because as I talk about the opposing defenses, which are there's some pretty decent certainly players and defenses. I didn't mention that North Carolina was 20th in the country in sacks per game last year, so they have a real quality defensive end coming in. Yeah, I mean, pass rush with the defensive ends. I think Notre Dame's defensive tackles, which are now bigger and stronger, if not bigger. Francis Brew isn't necessarily bigger, but is really strong. I think those guys can create pass rush opportunities for the guys on the edges just because of the amount of pressure that they can put forth in the middle of that offensive line.
Yeah, well, if that happens, it's gonna be a fun season no matter what. It always is. But let's look for that through the month of September.
All right, so back into the time machine, Tim. We're in the DeLorean, and we're going to fast forward to December. We know the ceilings for CJ Carr and Leonard Moore, super high. Those hype trains are going. The coal is burning. Other than those two, who else might emerge from this year's rendition of Notre Dame as the team MVP?
That's a good question. I think Jordan Faison will lead the team in receptions, but does that end up resulting in being the most valuable player of the offense? I tend to look more on the defensive side of the ball. I think Boubacar Traore could have a 10, 11, 12 sack season. Again, talking about those defensive tackles helping move some bodies around and freeing up a pass rush coming off the edge. He would be probably the first one that I would point to defensively. I think if Viliamu Asa hits the ground running physically, the tandem with him and Bowen is absolutely outstanding. And then we don't talk about this guy a whole lot, and there may not be I don't know how many games are going to come down to a last second field goal, but if they do, as we sit here right now, Spencer Porath, the transfer from Purdue, is the guy that you want. He made 15 of 17 last year. He was rock solid throughout the spring. He won the blue gold game with a last second kick. That was his most pressurized kick from the spring, and he made it. If it comes down to a last second field goal, again, as we sit here right now, feeling pretty good about Notre Dame's kicking situation.
Well, 100%, Tim, you took both of mine. And that Boubacar Traore was the first guy that came to my mind. But let's talk about Porath for just a minute. He was 1A for me. He could end up being the most valuable guy. And yeah, we had to be really impressed by him in the spring. And for fans who didn't really dial in and see how these last second field goals that he was hitting, he hit in the blue gold game and he hit in the Jersey scrimmage, occurred. And I think they were engineered to some extent by the scoring system to make sure that both scrimmages came down to a last second field goal. Then they lined up for the field goal and the entire team converged within 5 yards all around him in a semicircle and just screamed and did everything in the world they could to try to distract him. And Porath nailed it. He nailed everything in the spring. After last season's fiasco is a little strong, but at some points it wasn't. Yeah, that's going to feel good. And he could, you win a championship, it's going to come down to some last second games. And he's the guy that I think can get it done.
And every kicker, the ball comes off the foot of every kicker differently. And a lot of times you have a slice or a hook. Porath, his kicks are straight on. Wherever it's pointed, that's where it's going. And most of the time, his aim's been pretty darn good between the goalposts.
I've really come to believe until I started seeing Porath, who is obviously a really good kicker. It seems like the last 3-4 years, every single guy had a hook on it, and you just had to. That's the way he got it through the goal. And so I had to figure, well, it came off his foot weird.
Yeah.
Oh, but it hooked in. Well,
yeah. Now, if Porath misses it, then like miskicks it, it may slice or hook, but we
Yeah,
we haven't seen
he's
we
been
haven't
good.
seen anything like that. Yep.
He's
He's
got
been
that
good.
messy ball control, that messy free kick ball control is what he has. And I will say, in a structure that is maddening to me for the blue and gold games, that was my favorite moment, definitely of this year's, because I hate how the scoring's done and all that stuff. I get it, whatever, but that was cool. I enjoyed that thoroughly. My pick is one you guys didn't mention, and it's going to lead us into our question number five. It's Aeneas Williams. Why isn't anybody talking about this guy? It's not like we haven't seen him in games. We've seen him break some pretty massive plays in games with the backup offensive lineman in. So, question number five. I believe the lack of the talk about the strength, the diversity of talent, the different skill sets that our running back room has this year is extraordinarily disrespectful, considering, especially considering the offensive line they're playing behind. I mean, is there a reason for that at all, Tim? I don't even know how to put it. I'm
Well,
confused. I'm
well,
confused.
the reason I didn't mention Aeneas Williams with the previous question was because I was saving it for this one. I agree with you to some extent. I disagree in other ways. I'm not there yet with the entire backfield, and my answer to your question is, what's the reason for the disrespect? Because none of them are proven. I mean, Aeneas Williams has had his moments of 56-yard runs against Army and Navy, but
Huge catches versus Penn State in the playoffs.
no doubt about it. But we're talking about the number one back and essentially the every down back with Nolan James. We don't know what Nolan James can do. We saw. I tell you what, some of the local media saw more than anybody else did the week before the blue gold game in the Jersey scrimmage, when Nolan James, who Mike Denbrock, offensive coordinator, says he hovers above the ground, which I've never heard anybody say that about a running back. Nolan James looked really good that day, but we haven't seen it in a game. Kedron Young, A, can't stay healthy, and B, can't keep his weight down. If he can do both this year, they sure could use him, especially for those short yardage situations. Javian Osborne didn't practice in the spring, and he had a tricky surgery where they took they did surgery on his quad and put that in what they took from there in his wrist. There's no guarantee there. Jonas Walton looked good in the spring, but again, he's a freshman that we haven't seen. So I agree with you, Jesse. There's a ton of talent there. It's just not proven. The guy that I don't doubt is Aeneas Williams. He'll do just fine. He won't do it the same way Love and Price did because he doesn't have that breakaway speed, but he does have tackle breaking ability. I think we're going to see a lot of that.
First of all, we had talent last year, a duo, not saying anything earth-shattering here, that we will never probably see again in our careers of covering Notre Dame football. That duo was just spectacular. Okay. And I'm that those aren't strong enough words. So, Aeneas Williams, I think, is going to be really good, and part of the reason why he's going to be really good is because he is a proven pass receiver, and you made reference to the clutch catches or a couple of clutch catches he had against Penn State 2 years ago, and that's going to dial in nicely to this offense this year. That's going to pass more than it did in the past with C.J. Carr this year in his second year of development to a new level. So they plan on throwing the ball more. Look for him to be more of a balanced running back and pass receiver. He's got wiggle. He can make the moves. He's got explosive speed as well. So I like the chances there, and I like the fact that he's going to be a better pass receiver. And I'm not sleeping on. I'm maybe one of the few, but you did bring him up, Tim. And Kedron Young, I think, is a bit of a wild card here because if he does those two things, he's got to stay away from injury, of course, and he's got to come in at the right weight. But man, I love that guy's freshman his film as a senior in high school, and he came in, and I thought he was on the verge last year of being a big contributor and maybe the short yardage guy. Something that team really needed last year was a short yardage guy, despite having the two best backs in the whole country on the same team. Maybe Kedron Young can elevate this running game a little higher, but there's plenty of potential there. There's going to be a good offensive line. This will be an outstanding running attack.
You sold me on Kedron Young in the last, like with your perspective on Kedron Young in the last taking five that we had. I've actually dipped into my toes into his senior tape, and I truly do think that he's going to fill a specific gap in the skill set that we need in the backfield. Again, if he can stay healthy, if he can come in at the right weight. So I understand that.
He has to win the confidence of the coaching staff because camp will open. He'll be at best the third back. Nolan James is definitely the complement to Aeneas Williams. He was in the spring. Young wasn't available, I understand, but Nolan James is number two heading into camp. It's up to Kedron Young to either earn some number three snaps or actually beat James out.
There you
We're
go.
going to have some great early season games. It kind of does stink that Wisconsin's that first game. If you're trying to sort out through those differences in the backfield particularly, but hey, might as well throw them into the fire and see what cream rises to the top. So Wisconsin's probably a good litmus test, game one out of the gate for those guys. Um, we're going to jump into the sixth question. In honor
Well,
of,
this is five with Phil. What are you talking about?
well, this is a bonus retirement
All right.
question.
This
So.
is 5A or 5B. Go
And
ahead.
this is for Tim. Tim, Phil's going to be biting his arm off. I'm sure he's going to keep busy, but I don't know if we're going to be able to keep him busy enough with Notre Dame football. I need you to start clipping these taking five moments, and I just want you to disagree with everything he says and just post shorts on YouTube about it. Really, to get a nice, good debate and in fandom argument going, get some people talking about the vitriolous
You,
journalistic nature of these Notre Dame guys.
you, uh,
You're asking me to turn on a friend of 50 years that I
Oh,
went to high
it's
school with.
cinema.
yeah,
Okay, I see. I see.
Tim, and that's just the deal. I mean, 30 years. I mean, I learned Notre Dame football. I'll admit, I have no original thoughts. Anything I know about Tim or Notre Dame football, I learned from watching and reading every word that Tim Priester has written for what, 38, 30, how many years now, Tim?
It'll be 45 this
There
fall.
you go, 45 years. So,
You realize you're selling me more on the concept of how thrown off people would be by seeing you two go
All
at
right.
it.
I'll
all right,
I'll
well,
start I'll start taking shots at his inexperience and stuff like that.
I am a lot, I am younger than Tim. There you go. Not by much.
Well, we're going to wrap it up there, guys. Hopefully, we get to talk to you again at some point here coming up this season, Tim. On behalf of Fighting Irish Preview, I'm Jesse. This has been Phil Houk and Tim Priester from Irish Illustrated. And remember, we're brought to you by Coors Light, made to chill. That's the new sponsor heading into this year. But we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks,
Thanks,
Tim.
Jesse.